Spicy Meatball just dropped from YouTube here. They made an announcement that changes will be coming to the YouTube Partner Program starting early 2027. The Partner Program on YouTube is how channels earn money through the platform. And beginning next year, they are doubling the viewership requirements for new creators to earn ad and premium revenue through the Partner Program, and also doubling the watch hours over a 12-month period that are required to enter the Partner Program. You have to hit one of the two, either getting the required eligible views, which is now 20 million shorts views, or getting 8,000 watch hours on long-form content. Both of these have been doubled from the previous requirement, which was 4K watch hours or 10 million shorts views in the given time period, which is 90 days for shorts or 12 months for long form. That is, of course, coupled with the 1,000 subscriber requirement. So you have to hit 1,000 subscribers, then one of those two metric milestones there in order to be eligible for the partner program. This has caused a lot of ripples and a lot of conversation around it. And I think a very largely overlooked reason behind this is buckle your seatbelt. I know you're probably tired of me taking you on this wild ride here. AI. YouTube is experiencing a flood, really a fucking pandemic, a plague of AI slop that is just truly infecting the platform with STDs, the likes of which you could never even fathom. And it is completely contaminated shorts. It is also really going hog wild on long form too, and none of it's real, and they have been farming the partner program for every doubloon they could possibly hit out of it, like fucking Mario jumping into a coin block. And the AI slop sometimes gets taken down, not always. The YouTube methodology for identifying these channels is not ideal. I just covered the Kurt Sagat stuff like 2 days ago now. But these AI channels are infinitely springing up because they take actually seconds to make. And they are hitting these milestones, the previous milestones, very quickly. Obviously, inorganically, not authentically, and a lot of times it is just fraudulent. But they have been able to squeeze a lot of money from the YouTube Partner Program, and I imagine that's played a pretty big role in YouTube now upping the requirements to hopefully combat that. But in doing so, with this helicopter dicking of the requirements here, they are also cock-slapping all of the very real people who are trying to grind to reach the milestones to be eligible for the partnership program, and this makes it significantly more difficult. It has doubled, which is very, very hard for channels that are just beginning. And there's quite a bit I want to blabber about there. Because maybe this does have like a positive effect on stopping so many of these AI
de nye opdateringer, når det kommer til YouTube monetization. Der er blevet lavet lidt om på det. Og tak. Nej, jeg giver ikke nogen mods ud lige nu. Det var ikke planen.
Pumping out endless amounts here and eventually claw their way to the requirements for the partnership program to make money off it. But maybe it takes them too long. YouTube finds out and, smites them. I guess that's possible too. But I also think this pushes normal people that are trying to pursue a YouTube channel and try and make it to the partnership program, reaching these milestones. I think it's kind of nudging them, shoving them down the path of considering AI slop as well as like a supplement to the content they're making. So that way they can continue to like churn out content to eventually, hopefully, breach the threshold that's required now, because it's significantly less likely if you have like 3 or 4 videos that you spend a lot of time on and maybe one pops off, like getting maybe 2 million views shorts here. Like, you're still not even close. And getting a video to get 2 million views from out of fucking nowhere, pulled out of the ether, pulled out of your ass from a brand new startup channel, like, that's really rare. That's some like unicorn type shit. But even if that does happen, you're still not even like scratching at the nipple there on the titty to start suckling from the partnership program. 20 million shorts views in 90 days. Creators will feel incentivized to start using AI as well and adding that to their channel in order to keep churning out tons of videos and hope that some of them start to pop off. But even if they don't, the volume of those like lesser videos may eventually help them grind out the milestones required to reach the threshold. So I do think that this will have an adverse effect of leading to even more AI content from normal people trying to reach this requirement. I also think that this will stifle a lot of new channels who want to go on like creative endeavors with content, because making, you know, creative or specific niche content for a channel is kind of a death sentence here. It's very unlikely you're going to hit these milestones with something that is specific to a niche that you're interested in or like a topic that you're interested in.
Næsten 1300.
On viral content and just like really sterile, generic, formulaic content as opposed to like passionate.
Det er egentlig ikke den, der er svær at nå. De 1000 subscribers, de kommer helt stille og roligt. Hvis man laver så mange videoer, som jeg lægger op, jeg lægger jo 3 videoer op om dagen, så kommer der helt sikkert subscribers ind, men problemet er at nå de der 4000 watch hours. Altså det er virkelig mange timer, folk skal se ens videoer. Og man kan også gøre det igennem short views, men som jeg har sagt før i mine videoer, altså mine short videoer, de rammer måske 1000 til 1500 visninger, og man skal have 10 millioner visninger på 3 måneder, hvis man vil ind i det der partnerprogram. Jeg ved ikke, om jeg synes, det gik hurtigt at få. Altså, jeg har lavet YouTube i over et år nu, så jeg tænker, at det er meget normalt at ramme 1000 nu. Jeg ved det selvfølgelig ikke. Jeg kender jo ikke andre reelt, der laver YouTube, så jeg ved ikke, hvor lang tid sådan nogle ting kan tage.
So let's take animators, for example. With these new requirements, 20 million shorts views in 90 days. Oh, buddy. Ooh-wee. Hope you're ready for that carpal tunnel to set in. You're going to need to be churning out animations, or one animation that you keep breaking up into like a million shorts infinitely. Kind of like what Mr. Bean's YouTube channel does, actually. They keep recycling the same like handful of episodes because there is a lot of episodes of Mr. Bean. So they just keep repackaging those same episodes into like
jeg håber da på, at jeg kan nå det der milestone.
Probably won't happen.
Altså hvis vi tænker i forhold til, hvad jeg skulle spise resten af livet, så har jeg nok valgt lasagne. Bare fordi man kan proppe alt muligt pjat i. Man kan lidt selv bestemme. Goddag, Ebbe.
Animators are not going to be doing, because that takes so much time, money, effort. Like, that's a lot. Like, even making a minute high quality cartoon is a lot of work.
Det er det. Det kan man ikke få galt i byen med.
Make the 8,000 watch hours. You need to be doing a lot of those like minute long cartoons, or you could prioritize doing like really like cheap and quick animation, you know, like story time type animation where it's only a couple of shots and only a little bit of like movement and such, in order to prioritize getting a lot of those animations out. Maybe even trying to go for like longer animation runtime there to reach the watch hours. But no matter how you spin it, it's a lot. So the point I'm making is that these new requirements are very steep. And I think that this is going to scare a lot of people off from even trying to make, you know, very specific content or animations. Like, I do think it's going to push people towards just doing the standard viral content, or even utilizing AI slop themselves to try and grind out these milestones. And I'm not even entirely sure if this is going to really stop these content farms from churning out AI slop, because they might not even be affected all that much, because they can make hundreds of videos a day and just have them plastered everywhere and probably get there in the deadlines. Maybe they get taken down before then, but maybe they don't. In a lot of cases, they don't.
Stream.
So I guess we'll see the effects of this
Men det
come
vidste du
next
godt.
year. But that is a significant
Det er
change
sgu
to
helt
the
fint. Du
partnership
snakker bare
program
løs, så er der nogen, der gør det.
that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I can't say I'm overly surprised to see them changing eligibility for it, because like I said, there is a huge issue right now on the platform with all this AI slop that does keep meeting the partnership requirements, the threshold there, and is farming AdSense from YouTube with inauthentic, fake, phony baloney garbage. So like, I'm kind of not overly surprised that they're doing something to try and fight back.
Den skal der også være plads til, det hører med.
I just wouldn't have expected it to be.
Jeg ved ikke, om det var hate. Jeg tror bare, personen var forvirret over, hvad det var, de sad og så på.
That did kind of catch me off guard. Anyway, though, just wanted to blabber about it a bit. That's it. See ya.
Today, I'm going to share 3 stories that are all about people who are just trying to do their jobs.
Nå, så var den slut.
Without facing
Men det kan også godt være, at jeg misforstår det. Jeg ved det ikke. Det er der en mulighed for. Jeg så det i hvert fald ikke sådan. Jeg tror ikke engang, at Sara selv ved, hvad det er, hun skriver. Det giver i hvert fald ikke nogen mening. Ja, det er sgu fint. All good, all good. Jeg tror altså, det er en pige. Der står i hvert fald Sara. Man kan selvfølgelig godt hedde Sara andre steder. Hvis personen er utilfreds, kan de jo bare rykke videre. Der er ikke nogen, der tvinger dem til at være her. Oh yeah. Nej. Det Sara ikke ved, det er, at hun er også i gang med at give mig visningstimer lige nu. Så det er helt fint, hun hænger ud. Alt er visningstimer. Vi skal bruge det. Vi skal simpelthen have så meget af det. Det virker fuldstændig sindssygt. Men jeg vil bare komme i gang. Ja, altså, det er igen virkelig underligt spørgsmål, når jeg snakker dansk. Okay. Det kan også være, fordi hun har muted chatten, og hun bare ikke forstår det. Jeg ved det ikke. Det kan jeg se. Hvor er den? Der. Du. Ikke på en dårlig måde, det forstår jeg ikke. What? Oh my god. Ja. Jeg forstår ikke, om hun troller. I don't get it. Ja. Jeg tror ikke, jeg forstår, om hun er dansk, eller hun er engelsk. Fordi hos mig står det på dansk, men jeg tror, det er fordi, den automatisk oversætter det, folk skriver. Så nu fjerner det her. Nu kan jeg se, hvilken sprog det så er på. Nu kan jeg se, når hun skriver næste gang, om det overhovedet er dansk. Og det tror jeg ikke, det er. Jeg tror bare selv, den oversætter til dansk. Det er fjernet nu. Hello. Welcome to the chat. Så det var min, der var oversat til dansk. Så det er meget smart, den gør det, men det er ikke så smart for mig, når jeg ikke ved det. So I was only telling the other guy that every minute of watch hour is counting, so I don't mind you hating on what I'm doing. I'm actually just trying really hard to hit 4,000 watch hours, and now YouTube has come out with an update. So from January next year you need 8,000 watch hours. So I would like to do that before we hit that mark. It's all good. Du må hygge dig. Så det var det, den der lille tegn, det betød. Nå, så ved jeg det. Hvor fanden er den også sat til automatisk? Det giver da ikke nogen mening.
Facing an extremely unexpected and dangerous professional hazard. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every week. So, if that's of interest to you, go ahead and leave the like button at the supermarket's checkout line and tell them you're just going to go get one more thing. But then just take your time strolling through the store and just leave. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. On the evening of July 27th, 2000, a 35-year-old woman named Esther Penn held a folder full of financial documents as she rode an elevator down to the basement level of an old office building where she worked in New York City. Esther was exhausted because it was really getting late. The workday had actually officially ended hours ago, but today had been abnormally busy, so she'd had to put in
Hello
overtime
people,
to
welcome
finish
to the
everything up.
chat.
So the company that Esther worked for was a very prestigious financial firm that managed investments for really wealthy clients. And it was Esther's job to make copies of stock certificates and other important financial documents and file them away in a big vault in the building's basement. And today, there had just been a lot of files to get through, and in fact, this was going to be the latest that she'd ever had to go into the vault, like during a workday, since she had been working here. She'd been here 2 years. This was like her longest day ever. And so she was just sort of over it. But now, as the elevator came to a stop, and the doors opened, and Esther stepped out onto the basement level, she reminded herself that she was almost done here, and she'd be able to go home soon. Like, this is not that big of a deal. And so she walked over to the vault entrance, which was
Hello
this
people, welcome to the chat.
2-ton metal door. Since
Feel
employees
free
went
to say
in and
hi.
out of the vault constantly, this door was kept unlocked during the day. It just swung wide open. It's this huge metal door. And right now, it was standing wide open, as usual. So Esther walked through the open door into this massive vault. You got a picture, this is like a portion of the basement. You're not walking into like a little closet that they keep safe. This is like a massive walk-in vault with rows of filing cabinets. I mean, there's all these cabinets on the walls. I mean, this is a serious space. And so she goes in there and she walks to the very far end of this vault where the filing cabinet she needed was. Esther stayed there for over 15 minutes, carefully filing the copies she had made, and then when she was done, she turned and hurried back toward the vault's exit, excited to get out, go upstairs, and go home. But when she got to the massive metal door, it was no longer open. It was closed. Now, at first, Esther was
Hello,
just
people.
surprised that she
Welcome
hadn't
to the
heard
chat.
this door shut. It's a big metal
Hope
door
you're
that's
having a
gonna,
great evening.
somehow shut. She would hear it, right? But she's thinking, okay, I'll just push it open. Yeah, it's a huge door, but assuming it's not locked, you can just push it right open. But when she tried to open it, she quickly became quite alarmed because it was locked. For a little bit, she just panicked and thought, this is going to be a mistake. It's not really locked. Like, I'm not really trapped inside here. But after a few minutes, desperately trying to open this door and not being able to, because if it's really locked, you can't unlock it from the inside. At that point, after a few minutes of sort of realizing the situation she was in, she just stood back and her mind is reeling. Like, what does she even do? I mean, number one, she was just completely bewildered at how this had even happened. I mean, she and her colleagues came in here all the time. And no one, at least in her mind, had ever, even briefly, gotten locked in before. Like, this didn't happen. But then again, she knew she was working in the vault later than usual, like the latest she ever had. And so Esther wondered if maybe the door was on some sort of auto-lock timer to keep the vault safe after hours. Like, maybe this just happened automatically. But however this had happened, Esther knew she was in a bad spot here. I mean, it was late. Her colleagues were gone for the day. Nobody was coming in tonight to save her. And so the earliest anybody would open this vault up again would be tomorrow. Which meant she'd be stuck inside of this metal vault all night. And so Esther, it's like she's panicking here. Like, she doesn't want to stay in here all night. This is like a nightmare. And so she lunged at the door and she's banging on it and she's yelling for help, but she knew it was useless. I mean, even if anybody was still at the building, no one's gonna hear her through this door. Like, she's stuck. So finally, she stepped back, she took some calming breaths, and then she began looking around the room for some kind of solution, some kind of panic button. But, one, there weren't any windows. They're in the basement. This is a vault. There's no other way out besides this door. But then she saw on one of the vault walls was
Hello,
a
people.
fire alarm. And when Esther saw that, she almost laughed with relief, because now it didn't matter that nobody could hear her screaming. She could just pull the alarm and immediately alert both the fire department and the building's own security. And so therefore people would come down here, she'd be rescued, problem solved. So Esther ran over, and without any hesitation, she pulled it. And right away, the alarm starts wailing. It's so loud. And Esther, she walks over to the vault door, and she's covering her ears. It's so loud. But she's thinking, any minute now, the fire department or somebody's going to show up. They're going to open this door. So she's just relaxed at this point, generally speaking. Alarm's going off, and she's just waiting for the door to open. But several minutes goes by, and the alarm's still going off, but the door doesn't open, like nothing's happening. And as several more minutes went by and still the door wasn't opening, Esther went from being relatively calm to really starting to panic again. Then finally, it's like the panic was growing so much inside of her, it was like almost unbearable. Like she was really feeling anxious, almost like uncontrollably so, to the point where she found herself hyperventilating. Meanwhile, a lieutenant with the New York City Fire Department hopped out of a truck in front of a towering office building in Lower Manhattan. His department had just gotten an alert that a fire alarm had just been pulled inside of this building's basement vault. And right this second, as the lieutenant is standing outside of this building on the sidewalk, he didn't see or smell any smoke, but he obviously needed to go into the basement to be sure. So he hustled into the building with a few members of his team behind him to see what was going on. And soon after that, the lieutenant and his team were downstairs in the basement, standing in front of the closed vault door, while the building's security guards tried to help them get inside of the vault. And as the lieutenant waited, he actually finally did smell something, because to this point he still has not seen any sign of a fire or anything. But he started to smell something, except it wasn't smoke. He actually couldn't quite place what the smell was, but it stirred this feeling inside of him. Something wasn't right here. Then, suddenly, he had this overpowering urge to cough, and his head started to ache. All at once, he realized exactly what that smell was. He screamed at the security guards not to open that vault door. So Esther was right to think that by pulling the fire alarm, that would be the fastest way to call attention to herself in this situation. Because there were many very important files and documents in that vault. And so the alarm system that she triggered was programmed to notify the fire department and building security instantly. And they were known to have a very fast response. But in addition to quickly calling attention to authorities to come to the vault, this alarm system did another thing very well that Esther didn't know about. This alarm also activated something that was designed to put out any potential fires inside of the vault. And so in addition to sending out an alert that would presumably bring in the fire department to put out fires, in addition to building security, the alarm that Esther pulled also released a bunch of carbon dioxide into the vault, which sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Fires need oxygen to burn, and so by dousing the room with carbon dioxide, it should extinguish all the flames. But humans need oxygen too. And when Esther started having trouble breathing and hyperventilating, it was not because of panic. It was because literally the room she was in, the air was being sucked out of it. Carbon dioxide is actually odorless, but an artificial scent is sometimes added to these fire suppression systems. And so that lieutenant, what he was smelling outside of the vault, what he couldn't quite place at first was that artificial smell, which he eventually realized was a signal that there is a dangerous chemical inside of this room, and they should not go inside. They need to get a hazmat team to go in and handle this. But unfortunately, when they did get the hazmat team and they went inside the vault, Esther was dead. She had suffocated to death. Esther's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city, its owners, and the companies responsible for the vault and the alarm system, which did not have the appropriate warnings on them and were outdated. The outcome of that lawsuit was unfortunately not publicly reported on. It may not seem like much, but when someone goes the extra step, it really makes a positive impression. Whether it's someone taking an extra minute to actually help instead of just pointing me in the right direction, or a neighbor bringing in your trash cans while you're away. Those small ZipRecruiter, your match on ZipRecruiter. Around 5:30 p.m. on Monday, May 16, 1977, 39-year-old David Toomey stood outside the Pan Am building, which was a 59-story skyscraper right in the center of New York City. David checked his watch and sighed. The shuttle he was supposed to take to the airport had just arrived, but now he had to wait for this shuttle to unload, and then he, along with a bunch of people that he was in line with, could then finally get on, and then finally he could make his way. He was just thinking, I'm going to be late here. Now, David knew by taking this shuttle at this time, he was sort of cutting it close to get to the airport and catch his flight on time, but he wasn't too worried yet, because he had paid a lot of money to take this particular shuttle to get to the airport. I mean, anytime he needed to get to the airport quickly, this is the shuttle he would take, because it was very high-end and much faster than the regular bus or train, and, you know, it always got him there on time, at least so far it had. And so he's seeing this potential delay, and he's thinking, it'll be fine. I'll get there, I'll have enough time, I'll catch my flight. And so after a few minutes, all the folks who had been on the shuttle when it arrived made their way off, and the shuttle just stayed running as it waited for David and the people he was in line with to make their way on. And so as David and this queue of people he was with began marching their way onto the shuttle, David, who was a lawyer and he spent a lot of time in the office, head down in books and court, he just took a moment to, look up and look at the sky and soak in this last bit of the outside time he could have before basically hours of travel where he'd be back in the books. But as he was staring upwards, having this moment of solace before kind of a miserable day, he heard this loud, metallic groaning sound, followed by a deafening bang, and then before he could even begin to figure out what was going on, he saw there was this large piece of metal spinning through the air directly above him. At the same time this was all happening with David and the folks over at the shuttle, on a street next to the Pan Am,
Hej Morten.
a woman named Ann Barnicat stood at a bus stop waiting for the next bus. And all around her, the sidewalk was packed with the city's rush hour foot traffic. With people leaving work and hurrying to get to the next thing. I mean, there's people everywhere. And Ann, she's part of this rush too. She's trying to get home. But she still had at least another hour on the bus before she'd finally be back in the Bronx. And it might even be longer if traffic was bad. But, despite how miserable this commute was, she did it every day, so she was used to the slog. But now, as Anne waited for the bus, she suddenly heard all this screaming. And then there was a series of sounds that just didn't make sense. There was this booming noise, then there was a series of sharp cracking noises, and then a roaring sound, and then what sounded almost like thousands of tiny little bells being rang all at once. Instinctively, she just threw her arms up over her head as everybody around her started running around in a panic, and Anne, she was just trying to protect herself, just standing there shielding her head and her body. But it didn't help, because pretty much immediately, her arms and her head exploded with sharp pain, and she fell to the ground, and the last thing she would have seen as she laid on her back, no idea what was going on here, was that the air itself appeared to be glittering. What happened to Anne and to David outside of the Pan Am building would go on to change travel in New York City forever. Because the shuttle that David paid all that extra money for was actually a very large helicopter that took off from the top of the Pan Am building. The company that operated it was focused exclusively on always being able to get their usually very wealthy customers to the airport as quickly as possible. And so to do that, to save time, whenever they landed the helicopter on the top of the Pan Am building, for example, they always left the helicopter running at full bore and all its passengers got off and on. It was highly efficient, but also pretty hard on the helicopter's machinery. And that particular afternoon, right before David got on board, one of the helicopter's supporting struts, which holds the landing gear in place, gave out. This immediately caused the helicopter, which again is going at full bore, to tip over onto its side. And when its still roaring blades hit the ground, they snapped off and went spinning uncontrollably around the top of the roof, slicing through the line of people waiting to board. Then the props went over the side of the building and fell 59 stories, and on the way down they smashed into the building's windows along the way and caused this lethal shower of glass rain and metal shards to rain down on all the folks down below. 4 people on the roof, including David, were killed by the out-of-control helicopter blades. And the 5th fatality was Anne, who was down below on the ground, and she was killed when one of those helicopter blades fell onto her. As a result of this tragedy, the rooftop helicopter pad on the Pan Am building was immediately closed, permanently. And New York City, ultimately, again, as a result of this tragedy, banned commercial helicopter landings on all skyscrapers. On the morning of March 26, 1940, a 35-year-old farm worker named Millard Taylor ran through a heavy rainstorm towards this old fruit warehouse in Santa Rosa, California. His teeth were chattering from the cold, and he was really eager to get to shelter. So Millard didn't actually live here in Santa Rosa. For most of the year, he lived on this indigenous reservation in another part of the state. But he, along with thousands of other workers from all around the country, came to Santa Rosa each year to make money during harvest season. And like most of those workers, when Millard was in town for the harvest, he was essentially homeless. He was forced, because he had nowhere else to go, to sleep inside of this large encampment along the railroad tracks. Now, most of the time, this less than ideal living situation was actually fine. It did get pretty cold at night this time of the year, but Millard and the other workers had created tons of makeshift fire pits along the tracks that kept them warm. And these fires basically burned all night long, since it was so easy to find lots of quality firewood nearby. So all the workers just took turns collecting it and adding it to the fire. But whenever there was like a really bad storm, like this one they were in now, building a fire wasn't an option. And camping outside suddenly became miserable. And so just now there was this big flash of lightning in the sky right as Millard reached the warehouse. But instead of going into the warehouse to seek shelter, he ducked down underneath it and began to crawl under the warehouse. So the warehouse itself was locked because it was the main storage space for the prunes that they were here to harvest, and so they didn't have access to it. But the warehouse itself was this 200-foot wide structure, and it was raised up off the ground by these big support posts. And so there was space underneath it that was actually big enough that you could sit up underneath this structure, and the company wasn't using it. It was just off the ground to presumably protect the prunes, but Millard and the others, they would go under there to relax and to seek shelter from storms. And so Millard, he crawls down below and takes a spot underneath this warehouse alongside several other warehouse workers that were also waiting out the storm. They had a jug of wine they were passing around, just drinking and just waiting for this thing to pass. But this storm just did not let up. The rain kept on coming, and the wind and thunder and lightning, it just kept getting more and more intense. And so hours later, Millard and the others were still waiting out this storm underneath the warehouse, but now, in addition to just being freezing cold and out of wine, they'd begun to notice that the water outside that was pooling from the storm had begun coming down underneath the warehouse, like it was flooded all around them. At the same time this was happening, just a few feet away from the warehouse in one of the fruit company's offices, an employee named Gordon Boyd was inside doing some paperwork, and he suddenly heard this loud crack and then a rumbling sound. He stopped what he was doing, and as soon as the noises stopped, he ran outside into the storm to see what was going on. And when he got out there, he was completely shocked to see that the warehouse had completely collapsed. Now, Gordon, who was shocked by this, the first thought he had is like, this doesn't make any sense. It was raining really hard. This was a bad storm. But there had been plenty of actually way stronger storms in this area before, and the warehouse had always been
Almost
fine.
killed myself.
So it's like he has no idea how this storm could have caused this to happen. But more than that, he just had no idea what to actually do about it. So he just stood there, gaping. But then he looked off in the distance towards where the workers' encampment was, and he noticed there weren't any fires burning like usual. Now, obviously, there's a storm. It's very difficult to make a fire in a storm, but the workers would do that sometimes. And the fact that there were no fires burning whatsoever for all the workers that lived there, that was sort of unusual. It made him realize that very likely most or all of the workers had very likely sought out shelter somewhere else. And he knew one of the places they could go for shelter was underneath that warehouse. And so he snapped his vision back to the debris of the wreckage of the warehouse. He noticed a single human hand sticking out of the debris. So these seasonal workers in Santa Rosa, they relied on those fires to keep them warm at night and to cook food. And there were thousands of workers, so there was like a constant need for lots of quality wood to keep said fires going. And it would turn out many of the workers got this wood from the fruit warehouse, where Millard had been taking shelter with the others. For basically the entire harvest season, the workers at the encampment had been going under that warehouse and taking parts of its wooden support system to use for firewood. The workers were specifically taking out the building's sway braces, which run horizontally and are used to help support and stabilize the floor above. They don't look essential, but they are. And by the time this particular storm rolled through, so many of those braces had been removed that when Millard and the others took refuge down there, the structure was incredibly weak, and it just could not withstand the weight of the hundreds of tons of prunes on the floor above and the battering winds from the storm and the rain, and so eventually it caused it to collapse. When Gordon saw the human hand coming out of the rubble, he immediately called the sheriff, who put together this huge rescue effort that was launched pretty much right away to pull anybody out of the rubble. And they would find all 9 workers.
That escalated quickly.
Millard, but they had all been crushed to death. Ultimately, these deaths were ruled to be an accident, and nobody was found criminally negligent. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And remember, we have a whole playlist of Places You Can't Go episodes ready for you to binge quick. So go ahead and click here and give them a watch. All right, until...
Who would win in a fight, you or a bear? Well, it depends what type of bear it is. So against my teddy bear, I mean, it's easy. Against the grizzly bear, I'd rather not get into that fight in the first place.
That was a good answer. Good answer.
Hello everyone, my name is Shirley and I'm here to answer some questions from the honesty box. So let's get started. How did you become a Shaolin master? Usually inside this tradition, you go through a graduation system, which means, especially in the field of martial arts, I started with the age of 4, did different exams in the practical area, and at some point also had to learn theoretical knowledge. And afterwards you're being tested, and if your skills are proficient enough, then this is the moment where your master that you train under is raising you up to also become another master along this line. So for us, and also for me, it's not the mastery of physical abilities, it is the mastery of becoming a good human being. That is the mastery. Because somebody who can throw 1,000 punches, make 500 push-ups, make very nice forms, beautiful forms, but still walks out on the street, and when somebody like next to him falls to the ground doesn't help that person up, doesn't deserve the master fighting. What does fighting teach you about compassion? When you learn the martial arts, for example, very practically speaking, you learn about the vulnerabilities, the weak points of the human body. You learn where to hit that hurts the most, and where to hit to really cause some devastating pain or even some collapse. This is the one side. One kind of training that we find in the Shaolin tradition, especially for the ones who practice martial arts, is the practice of so-called forms. A form, it is like a choreography consisting of different sections, which have again different individual movements inside. And what I was sharing with my disciple on the one side is, for example, a step form. It teaches you coordination. It teaches you also how to actually handle the step. It also teaches you how to use power in with the step. It teaches you how to connect the body with the step.
Oh,
And so
I think that's it, guys.
where you train on the one side the body,
No one
but
is
also
joining.
you train your concentration,
Thank you for
train your
watching.
focus,
I'll catch you guys
and
later.
you train
Thanks.
just the ability to mobilize energy, to mobilize power